Hello everyone, welcome to this third video in the series 1111 Matrix Code Revealed. This video, boy, if you think what I put out last time has blown your mind, just wait folks, because this one's liable to make your head just pop right off your shoulders. A lot to go over today, a lot of interesting stuff, and again, I think this is just going to blow everyone's mind. It blew mine. So surprised you're even looking at a head sitting here on the screen. So, but before we get started, before we jump into this, I want to answer a couple of questions that have come up from the last video. Nothing too difficult, just really quickly, I just want to go over this. So one of the questions that came up, the person understood how, with the beginning numbers, how I was able to bring them back to 1111. What they couldn't figure out, and I neglected to explain this in the last video, was how I made the last number, because I mentioned that I had taken the equation up to 18,581,402,786. How was I able to bring that back to 11? Well, not 1111, but back to the 5 ones. Okay, it's pretty easy. So let's just go ahead and open up a calculator here and I will show you. So the code told me to start with the last 4 numbers. And when the number gets larger, what you're going to do is take the last 4 and then go to the next 4 and then go to the next numbers after that. So starting with the last 4, this number here, that's 18,581,402,786. It's a long number. So we're going to start with 2786. And then we're going to add 8140. And then we're going to add 185. Okay. And that gives us the 5 ones. So that's how I was able to bring that number back to all ones. Okay, so very easy to do. And technically, like what you would do with the first numbers, you start with the last 4 and then just add the remaining, and there's only 2 left. But again, as the number grows, so like on this number here, 10360075, we would focus on 0075 as the last 4, and then add 1036, and that'll take you back to 1111. So once it reaches the next 4, then you add the next 4. If there's more after that, then you go from 4 to 4, and then whatever's remaining after that. So pretty easy. The other question was on the Vedic square that I generated from the first number. So the first number was 371074, and I created a Vedic square from that number, starting from 37 all the way over to 74, and then I went down to 37, back across to 74, and then back up to 37. Now, the question was, how is this a Vedic square? Well, let me show you. It's pretty easy. So starting with the first number, 37, we would add those together. So 3 and 7 is 10, which reduces to 1, and that gives us the first number that you see over here. And then we have 38. So 3 and 8 is 11. So 1 and 1 becomes 2, and that becomes the next number. And then 3 and 9 is 12, which becomes 1 plus 2 is 3, and then we get the next number. So we just continue in that pattern until we get to 45, which becomes 9, and that gives us the wall of 9s and the floor of 9s. So as you can see here, I drew a yellow, or colored it in. I colored in these squares yellow so you could see where the wall and floor of 9 is on this. So ultimately what it does is it creates a 4 by 4 Vedic square. Okay. So it's actually, it's much bigger than a Vedic square. So we end up with this 4 by 4 Vedic square. Now there's actually 2 rows left over at the end. I know it looks like 3, but I started adding these numbers in, but it actually ended with these last 2 rows along the side and along the bottom. Now, what's interesting, and I want to point out here, is when you start looking at these numbers and adding them together, you have 1 and 2, which becomes 3, 2 and 4 becomes 6, 3 and 6 is 9. 4 and 8 is 12, which 1 and 2 is back to 3. 5 and 1 is 6. 6 and 3 is 9. And so it continues that pattern of 3, 6, 9, 3, 6, 9, 3, 6, 9 over and over and over. And it would do that down and it would do it across. But that sequence actually appears within the Vedic square itself. So if you look at column C right here, going straight down, it's 369, 369, 369, 369. So even without this last line that I started adding by adding those numbers together, it's just interesting that that would be the next sequence added. So yeah, but anyway, that should demonstrate how this is actually a Vedic square, but it's a 4x4 Vedic square. Okay, let's hop into what I have found since the last video. And folks, this just keeps getting more and more blatantly obvious that this is all done by design, okay? You're going to see and really truly realize, I hope, by the end of this video, that this is no longer coincidence. It never has been coincidence that these numbers are coming out this way. This is by design. I absolutely believe that 100%. So let's start with, let's start here. So looking at this Vedic square and how each one of these numbers going along the top and the bottom, and I mentioned this in the last video, how when you add the top number to the bottom number, you get 111. So 37 plus 74, 111. The next numbers, 38 and 73 is 111, and so on, straight across. It goes across the top, bottom, and the sides. You come back to the number 111. Well, that led me back to the third number in the sequence, which is 111100. And this idea, and again, I don't know where these ideas come from. I other than being spiritually guided, they just pop into my head, okay? I don't know where they come from. I'm not a mathematician, okay? So to think this stuff out on my own, I just don't buy it. It's coming from somewhere. But I was looking at this number and the idea popped into my head to split the number. And what I mean by that is by looking at the code, which the code tells us to look at the last four numbers and then add the remaining. So the split would happen before the last four numbers. So like on this first number, we would get 37 and then split it and then do 1074. About to sneeze. I don't want to do it on camera. Ugh. Okay. Make sure it. All right. And then on the second number, we would have 74, do the split, and then we would have 1037 and so on. And like on the third number, we would split it at 1,000 and we would have 111 remaining. So that's what I did. And let's jump over here. So I split them off. In this column A, I have the complete number. In column B, I have the beginning numbers before the split. And then in column D, I have the numbers after the split. By doing that, I was guided towards looking at each set of numbers in Gematria just to see what phrases might happen to come up. And lo and behold, this reveals so much, and you're going to see so much interconnectedness, and we got that phrase once before, the interconnectedness of Gematria. You're going to see how all of this comes together and is really truly starting to form a much larger picture. So starting with the first number, we have 37 and then 1074. The number 37 in Gematria, I could not find anything of what I'm going to say of value, okay? I mean, there were some odd things that popped up, but nothing that stood out to me, nothing that seemed to relate to what I'm doing here. So I had the name Jesus here because 37 seems to keep pointing back to Jesus. So that's not the value. Jesus does not have the value of 37. I just put it there because that's what it seems to point to. But I also put it there because the last four numbers, 1074, through Gematria, one of the very first phrases I found was, "Behold Jesus." So again, it's pointing right back to him. Then we get the phrase 4 by 4. Well, that's interesting because this number was generated from 371074, which is the same number which I created the 4 by 4 Vedic square. So you can see how that's connected. Then we get the phrase simulated reality. Well, that's what I've been talking about all along. Is this pointing towards us living inside of a simulation? I think it does. I firmly believe that. Then we get the phrase, the name that equals Christ. Now that's interesting, and we'll come back to that here in just a few. Then we get, look up, it is God the Most High. Well, that one's interesting because if you think back to the symbols that were generated from the numbers that I talked about in the last video, we get the 3 arrows pointing up. And if you recall, I said, look up at what? The sun. So yeah, it's just interesting that we're getting look up. It's God, the Most High. Okay, let's go back to numbers here. All right, then we get the phrase, a son, S-O-N, a son declared by the math of God. Well, that's what we're dealing with here, math. And is this a reference back to Jesus? It's possible. Then we get to the phrase, signs the matrix is real. Well, that's what all of this appears to be, signs pointing towards this simulation that I believe that we are living within. And then we get reality is a hoax, which also makes sense because if this is a simulation, then this reality is fake. It's not real. It's a hoax. All right. Moving on to the next number, 741037. 74 is before the split, and we get the phrase, add each cell. Now, this will become important in a little while, and you'll see why. After the split, we get 1037, which gives us Merovingian king, which is interesting because the Merovingian was a character in, I believe, the second Matrix film. And then we also get the Priory of Sion, which was interesting. But then look at this. We get Nikola Tesla 369. Now, what are the chances that we would get Nikola Tesla 369? That his name completely spelled out and then the numbers 369. And it keeps going back to that. That's what started all of this, was adding 333 to 1111 and getting the number, 369963. And of course we have the phrase by Nikola Tesla, or the quote, I guess I should say, if you only knew the magnificence of the 3, 6, and 9, then you would have the key to the universe. So just strange that we would get his name and those 3 numbers. We also get the phrase man awakened, which that appears to be what's happening. This is sort of an awakening. We get the triangular pattern, which if you go back to the power of 9 that I talked about in the last video, is the triangular pattern. And then we also get awake dream. Well, if this is a simulation, then it is like a dream that we are, or we appear to be, awake within. But maybe we're not truly awake, and that's why it's saying man awakened, because we are waking up. All right, let's go to the third number. So the third number is 111100. So we get 111, which is the number before the split, which gives us Didier, which if you recall the last video, Didier Sournay was the one who the article Apocalypse 2058 was written about, and how he is predicting that in the year 2058, some sort of event is going to take place. And then we also get the word encoded. Well, that's what all this is. It's encoded within these messages are encoded within these numbers. All right, the number after the split is 1000, which we get times running out. Well, that's interesting because going back to that article, Apocalypse 2058, that seems to be doomsday, okay? Then we get the phrase, the one true God, the great I am. And then we also get the apocalypse is here. Again, tying back to Didier Sornay and that article about 2058. We also get a matrix reprogramming. I keep talking about a reboot. I feel like we're in a reboot, and I feel like the year of the reboot is 2058. This has already happened. Again, in reference to reboots or things being reset, it's happened in the past, many times, multiple times, and it's going to happen in the future. A computer made for Gematria code. Well, we're dealing with Gematria code here. Conscious shift of the mind. If we go through a reboot process, would that not also be a conscious shift of our mind? Think about it. And then we get God's return to earth. Now, that phrase, a lot of this is going to make some crazy sense here in just a little while. Yeah, in a big, big way, folks. Like, I'm just actually very anxious about telling you about it right now, but I'm going to save it to the end. I'm just going to follow this path that I have gone throughout this week exactly the way, I'm going to present it to you exactly the way this has all been coming to me. All right, so the next number, 1480963. 148 is before the split, and we get a glitch. Is that a glitch in the matrix? Possible. Then we get decode a name and a magical name. Well, decode a name. I mean, could that be a reference to Didier? Could it be a reference to Jesus? I mean, who knows? After the split, we get 0963, and of course, 0 at the beginning of a number does not calculate, so it's removed, and you're left with 963, which we've covered these numbers in the last video, but I'm just going to read through them really quickly. So we have the event, and is that the event that's going to take place in 2058? Possibly. We have end of days prophet, only the chosen can see, created by prophet, the truth codex, Almighty God's code reader, and let us make man in our image, and the blazing star. Now, the blazing star, if you recall back to the last video that I did, I talked about the sun symbols appearing. Okay, that is, the sun is a star. It's the blazing star. Okay. Going on to the next number, we have 1850926. So before the split, we have 185, which gives us decoding a code, which is exactly what we're doing here. And we get the word dreamland. Well, if this is a simulation, then it's as if we were in a dreamland. After the split, we get 0926, and again, remove the 0, which gives us the phrases out of matrix, labyrinth of dreams, is the Mandela effect of the creator, and circle in square in triangle. Okay. Let's look at these last two for just a second here. Is the Mandela effect of the creator? One of the phrases that's going to come up later is the phrase, the Bible has been changed. And it's true. So if you recall the phrase from the Bible where it says the lion, it's something along the lines of the lion will lay down with the lamb. It's no longer lion. It now says wolf. And what's interesting about it is you will find tons of paintings, illustrations everywhere depicting a lion and a lamb, not a wolf. You will also find these references in movies and television shows where they quote the lion and the lamb. They never once say wolf. But look in your Bible right now, and you will find that it says wolf, not lion. Now, I kind of have a theory about the Mandela effect, and because I've been listening to a lot of podcasts, people talking about it and suggesting that perhaps we found a way to go back in time and make a change. But some of these changes are taking place in front of our very eyes, okay? We have memories of it being one way before, and now memories, or not memories, but we're realizing it's not the way we originally remembered it to be. If someone went back in time and made the change, would they have made the change somewhere in the middle so that we have a memory before or after? You would think that if they were going to do it, they would want to go back to a time much further back than that to make the change. So my theory is, what if no one's actually going back in time at all? What if they are simply finding a way to hack the code, hack the matrix, and simply change the code? Then those changes would be taking place right in front of our very eyes, the way they appear to be happening. So maybe it has nothing to do with time travel. It's just changing the code. So, all right, then this last one, circle and square in triangle. This one's interesting because there's a TV show on Netflix right now called Squid Game, which prominently features those symbols, the circle, the square, and the triangle. Now, the way it's written, circle in square in triangle, would give us this symbol like this. But this also led me to the internet, where I found this image. And this is a painting by a Japanese monk whose name is, and I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly or not, so forgive me if I mispronounce it, but it's either Sengai or Sengai. Okay, it's Sengai. Now, this painting is his representation of the universe. And the circle is supposed to represent the infinite and how the infinite is at the basis of all things. But the infinite in itself is formless. We humans endowed with senses and intellect demand tangible forms, hence a triangle. The triangle is the beginning of all forms. Out of it first comes the square. A square is the triangle doubled. This doubling process goes on infinitely, and we have the multitude of things which the philosopher calls the 10,000 things that is the universe. Now again, we're getting that phrase, the universe. Just like Nikola Tesla said, if you only understood the magnificence of the 369, you would have a key to the universe. If you recall back to the email that I received from someone named Bob, and the message was a note from the universe. But I want you to think back to where it says the triangle is the beginning of all forms, and out of it first comes the square. Think along the lines of this being a simulation, and then also think of how images are displayed on a computer screen, okay? They're made up of tiny little pixels that are tiny little squares of color. And these tiny little squares are built up, and the color changes on them to actually form this much bigger picture. So you could actually build up enough that it would start to form a circle, and you would not be able to detect that the edges are jagged. It would look so smooth because you would have so many tiny pixels completing that shape. So if you think of this as a simulation and how this reality is being presented to us, it could be through these tiny pixels. I mean, the way that it's built, the way that it's designed. So it's just interesting that we get that phrase. All right, let's go back to numbers here. All right, the next number is 2220889. Before the split, we get 222, which gives us hidden codes, which is exactly what we have here. God is a code, and hacking time. I just mentioned that with the Mandela effect. What if they're not going back in time? They're just merely hacking the time code, the time sequence, or whatever within this simulation. Just simply change the code. It could change the reality. All right, after the split, we get 0889. Drop the 0, so we're left with 889. We get Earth is a memory. Spiritual darkness. Exposed the infection. Now, if you recall back to the last video, I talked about is the possibility of mankind being a virus and how a virus multiplies and takes over its host, that it appears as though mankind is doing the same thing. We are overpopulating the planet and overtaking our host. So it's almost as though it's showing that I have exposed the infection. All right. Then the next phrase is all of those are getting erased. That's kind of a spooky phrase to have. And then we also have the creator of the creation. So the creator of this simulation. All right, moving forward, the next number, 2590852. So 259 is before the split, and we get the sign, the hidden name. And then we get Bob is real. Now, again, how interesting that we're getting Bob is real. In the last video, we got who is Bob, and I believe that number was generated from 1111. I just want to double check that that's correct. Let's see. Let's go to, I don't want to make the quote and be wrong. Yes, so 1111 gives us who is Bob. So how interesting that we're getting Bob is real. After the split, we get 0852. Again, drop the 0, so we're left with 852, and we get the phrases perfection of illusion. And then look here. Is it true Bob is real? I mean, folks, you can't make this shit up. And it's as though it's asking the question and the first number is telling us the answer. Is it true Bob is real? Yep, Bob is real. Crazy. So then we get, in the beginning, God created the beginning. Well, that kind of harkens back to what I was saying in the last video, where the beginning is the end and the end is the beginning. It's a continual loop. Then we get predict future. Well, that seems to be what we're doing here. We're talking about the year 2058 and what's going to possibly happen in that year. Then we get hidden truths become clear. Well, these are all hidden messages and they're all becoming clear. And then we also get execute the plan. Now, does that mean a plan has already been executed and that's what we are witnessing now? Or is there a new plan that we're supposed to execute? Who knows? All right, the next number, 2960815. Before the split, we get 296. And that gives us a Gematria code. Well, again, that's what we're dealing with here, Gematria. And then we get the phrase blank screen and I'm reborn. Now think about it. I've been talking about a reboot, a reset. Well, what happens when you reboot your computer? Well, first you're presented with a blank screen. And then the computer boots up. And it's as if the computer is saying, I'm reborn. It's interesting when you think about it that way. All right, after the split, we get 0815. Again, drop the 0, leaves 815. And that gives us matrix elements, the simple truth, the next chapter. So again, if this is a reboot, a reset, then we're going to go into the next chapter. The Sigil of Saturn. We'll come back to this in a little while. Magnificent communication. That seems to be what this is. And then we get I am 11. Interesting, since how a lot of this has started from the number 11 or 1111. And then we get the phrase crash the matrix. Now, I've talked about hacking the matrix. It's interesting that it says crash the matrix. But then we also get the phrase computer-generated life. Again, if this is a simulation, then we are computer-generated life. And then we also get matrix test. There's all of these references back to the matrix in a simulation. All right, moving forward. Next number, 3330778. So 333 is before the split, and we talked about these numbers in the last video, but I'll read through them really quickly. We get the tool, which is what all of this appears to be, is a tool for solving this. Magic secret. Well, these appear to be magic secrets. Speaking in code. That's exactly what they're doing. This is all being spoken through in code. Hidden intelligence. It's all hidden within these codes. A code to find God. Looped time. Earth ends. Message of end. Again, it keeps talking about an end. But if you remember the last video, and folks, if you're just jumping in on this one, I highly encourage you to go back and watch my second video that I put out. This will make a lot more sense to you if you're just starting on this one. But it keeps talking about the message of the end, but as I had shown, the end is the beginning and the beginning is the end. So there's no true end. It's just going to be the beginning of something else. The next chapter. All right. And then after the split, we get 0778. So drop the 0. We have 778, which gives us the calm before the storm. Well, that's interesting. Even though things don't appear to be calm right now in the world, is this considered the calm before the real shitstorm shows up? Now look at the second phrase. There's a storm coming. So what are the chances that you'd get those two phrases out of the same number? The calm before the storm and there's a storm coming. But then we also get a code system. Again, that's what we're talking about here. This is all through code. All our memories are fake. Well, if this is a simulation and we are part of the simulation, then technically I guess our memories would be fake. The master hacker of the mind. Now, I had this interesting thought in reference back to Jesus. What if Jesus Christ was the first true hacker? Think of all those miracles that he was supposed to have performed. What if he was capable of doing that simply because he knew how to manipulate the code? Interesting thought, huh? Okay, let's go on here. Where was I? Okay, so the master hacker of the mind, and then we have decode the binary code. And then keeps repeating the same code. Well, that's what these numbers do. They all can come back to 1111. It's repeating the same code. And we kept seeing all those cycles, how each number is going up and down by 37. So these beginning numbers, 3774, 111, 148, they're all going up by 37. And these numbers at the end are all going down by 37. It's repeating a cycle, repeating the same code. Okay, moving on. The next number, 3700741. Before the split, we get 370, which gives us the phrases terminate, it is the end, mathematical code, the Bible has been changed, we talked about that just a moment ago, and reboot mind. There you go again. We're talking about a reboot, a reset. After the split, we get 0741. Again, drop the 0. So 741 gives us electronic mind control. The Earth is splitting, the code of intelligent design, and detoxing the planet. Well, as I mentioned, if we are an infection overtaking our host and we're going through a reset, then technically that would also be a detox. It's interesting. All right, the last number. Now, the last number is 4070704. And if you recall from the last video, that's the number that led me to the patent, the US patent for the input-output processor. Okay? And this is also the number where I just talked about a moment ago, where the numbers are going up and down by 37. This is where they meet, and they meet in a number that forms a palindrome. 4070704. It's the same forwards and backwards. Now, again, what are the chances that that number would just happen to be the 11th number in this sequence of these generated numbers? So if you look here, this is the first number. So we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Interesting. Okay. So before the split, we get 407, which gives us pure code. Again, that's what we're talking about here, codes. Pull, shift, all, die. That's scary. And then AI has been here before. Now, my brother has brought up this idea, which I'm really taking to this idea, that all of this could be AI driven. The whole simulation. So we think that we're just discovering AI. But what if it's been here all along? It's an interesting thought. After the split, we get 0704. You drop the first 0, so we're left with 704. That gives us time manipulation, which would tie back into the Mandela effect, because if we're not going back in time, we're just changing the code of the time sequence, then that could be time manipulation. Stumbling over my words here. Then we also get Yeshua. And then we have DNA nanocomputer and decode the matrix. That's kind of what we're doing. And creator of all creation. Okay, so let's look at a couple of things here now that we've gone through all of those. Going back up here to the top, we got the phrase from the first number, the name that equals Christ. Okay. I looked at that and I thought, well, what does that mean? And especially that it says equals. So I went to Gematria and put in Christ and got the value of 290. So 290. Now, what's interesting about this is that 290 becomes 11. So 2 plus 9 is 11. And then, of course, 1 and 1 becomes 2. So from 290, we get the phrases God's math. Again, that's what we're dealing with here is math. I cracked the code. God in me, me in God. Now that phrase right there reminds me of the number 369963, just in the way it's written out and the way that those numbers are. So it's like a step sequence up and then back down. So God in me, me in God. That's not the value of those words, but it just reminds me of that number. And then we get teaching of God. And then we have the word enlightening. Then we get the Bible's end. And then oddly enough, we get son of Bob. How strange is that? And then we get DNA is a barcode. That's interesting. So I want to talk about Bob here for a moment. In the last video, I talked about receiving an email back in June from someone named Bob, and all of the email said was a note from the universe. And I talked about how I hadn't responded to the email because it came to my work email, and I was concerned that it was some sort of phishing email, that it could do something to harm the, my job's computer, network of some kind, whatever. Even though I'm not technically connected to the network of my job, so I don't VPN or anything like that. But I was just being cautious, but I also didn't want it to affect my computer at home because, this is my personal computer that I use for work, and I didn't want anything to happen to it, so I didn't respond. However, last Monday, I was screen sharing with a coworker, showing her some of the stuff that I have found, and she kept prodding me to respond to that email. And I kept going back and forth about it, but I finally responded. And all I wrote back was, if I can find it here. So here's the original email from Bob, and it said a note from the universe. And then I responded back to Bob, "What is the message?" That's all I wrote. Now here's some really interesting stuff. I took all the numbers from when Bob sent his email in June 25th of this year at 10:26. So I put all those numbers in, added them together, and got 27, which reduces to 9. Now, again, I responded to this email only after being just prodded again and again and again from my coworker to respond. Again, I wasn't going to, but she just kept pushing me to do it. So finally I was like, okay, fine. And we were screen sharing, so she saw me do this. So I sent the message. Well, I happened to go back and look at the date and put in all the numbers that I sent my email to this Bob. And what are the chances that those numbers would also equal 27 and would reduce to 9? Now, folks, that wasn't planned. I mean, I wasn't even thinking about it. And I wasn't going to respond, but she just kept prodding me, like, do it. And literally, that's what she was saying while we were talking. She was just going, do it. And so finally, I hit send. But to do it right at the moment, at that exact time, on that exact day, where those numbers would equal exactly the same end result. They both reduced to 27 and then further reduced to 9. Now, here's something else spooky is Bob sent his email on June 25th. I responded on October 25th. How odd is that? Okay. Now, here's something else interesting. So we have the number 9. Well, what are the chances that the name Bob would give the value through Gematria using the Jewish cipher, the value of 54, which 5 and 4 is 9? Can't be coincidence, folks. All right. I think I actually know who Bob might be. And we'll get to that here in just a moment. I was thinking about jumping over to that, but let's finish this up here first, and then we'll jump over to who I think Bob may actually be. Okay, so looking back at the phrase, the name that equals Christ, it also made me want to put in Jesus, the name of Jesus. Now, Christ a lot of people think Christ is Jesus's last name, and it's not. Christ is just more like a title. It means the anointed one. So Christ is not his last name. But I wanted to put in just the name Jesus and see what value that gave me. So that gives us the value of 985, which when you add those together, you get the number 22, which reduces to 4. Now it's interesting that just like the first number, 371074, when you add that together, you get 22, and that reduces to 4. So that's the very first number that was generated from this code. So it's interesting that we would get behold Jesus from that first number. And of course, putting in Jesus gives 985. It's just, you can see how the tie-ins, the numbers tie in. But the phrases that we get are find the zodiac proof, I am named true prophet of God, a matrix is a proof of a God, God is the alphabet and the number. Now think about this, folks. All of this is being revealed through numbers and letters. You see where I'm going with this? God is the alphabet and the number. I mean, that's what Gematria is doing. You're using these numbers to calculate these phrases because each letter in these phrases represent a number. It's so odd. It's so interesting. It's so cool. All right. Let's look up here at the second number here. 74. And I talked about how the only phrase that made any sense that I found was these 3 words, add each cell. Now, the way that my mind is starting to work with this stuff now, it made me question this in 2 different ways. The first was, does it mean add each cell, such as 37 and 74? Or does it mean combine them? So I started with just combining the 2 numbers. So I got the number 3774. And interestingly enough, through Gematria, that gives us the phrases, your name has to be Jesus Christ to be Jesus Christ. What are the chances of that? I mean, that's just interesting. But then we get the phrase translating and transmitting messages directly from the entity to the querent. Well, that's what's happening here. It's translating. I'm translating through this stuff by finding these phrases through this code. It's being transmitted to me, I believe, which is coming directly from the entity, whoever the entity is, to me. So it's interesting that phrase is so precise like that. Now, one thing I want to point out here is also how precise each number is, because simply changing one number could change the outcome, the entire outcome of the phrases that you're going to get. So that really has to be taken into consideration, how precise each phrase is, how they all are connected from these numbers. Because again, change one number could change the outcome of the entire phrases that you get in the end. Okay, so then the other way that I took this by add each cell was literally, I can't even say, was it a instruction to add the numbers in each cell? Because I'm using this spreadsheet software for the Mac called Numbers. And these little boxes here are called cells. It's just like Microsoft Excel, but it's for the Mac. And so it felt like an instruction. It was telling me to add each one of the numbers in these cells. So I did. So starting on this first one, going from 37 to 74, 111, 148, 185, 222, 259, 296, 333, 370, and 407 gives the number 2442. Well, what are the chances that that number would also be a palindrome? It's the same number forwards and backwards. And that gives us the phrase, true intelligence comes from logic and how it's applied. So, yeah, I mean, you have to stop and think about just the way that I was thinking of doing this, the logic behind it, and the instruction at each cell. And it tells us true intelligence comes from logic and how it's applied. All this information that's coming to us and how it's being applied. It's a very interesting phrase. Now looking at the second column, the numbers that make up the end, adding all of those together. So 1074, 1037, 1000, 963, 926, 889, 852, 815, 778, 741, and 704 gives us 9779. Again, a palindrome. It's the same forwards and backwards. Now, this phrase, this entire phrase, is generated from this number. And it's very telling. It says, from my mind, by that which comes from inspiration, I create reality. And so, reality is as real as these words that I type for you to read. By the life force, I am God, the creator of all things. It's a lot to unpack, folks. But I want you to think back, for those of you, and I hate to borrow from the movie The Matrix, but it would make sense if I do. I want you to think about the scene, if you've seen the movie, the very first one, where Neo is jumping from one building top to the next, or he's attempting to do so. And he misses the mark. And he falls straight down. He hits the cement, pushes through it. It pushes him back up, and then he lands hard. When they pull him out of the Matrix, he has blood trickling out of his mouth. And he looks at Morpheus and says, I thought you said this wasn't real. And Morpheus says to him, your mind makes it real. So if this is a simulation that we live within, is our mind also helping to create this and forming the illusion that this is reality? So, I mean, if you think of us as a program, okay, we are like a program running on top of an operating system. And we can only operate based on the programming that was given to us. So the limitations that we have are what were programmed within us. But we also have to operate off of the parameters of the operating system. So think of like software made for the Mac won't technically work on Windows unless a version for Windows has also been made. So we also have those limitations. If we could find a way to hack the Matrix, think about what we could do, but also think about the reasons why we're not able to, or why we haven't gotten to that point. I mean, just think if we had the ability to walk through walls or shoot lasers out of our eyes. I mean, who's to say the code couldn't be changed to make that happen? But the way that we see things now, the way that we're able to operate now, that's impossible. Or is it? But you have to think about how volatile mankind is, because I can tell you right now, if someone was able to hack the code, actually hack your specific code, and could make you have the ability to be able to walk through walls, I guarantee you there's people out there right now, the first thing they're going to do is walk through the walls of a bank and steal all the money. Okay? So, I mean, while in some regards it would be a great ability to have, because think of the things you could do. You know, you could go through the walls of a building and save someone if the building was burning down. You could do all kinds of things to help mankind, but you're going to have those people that are going to use it for terrible reasons. Okay? But you have to think of us too like software as well, because software is designed to perform a certain task. But some software have the capability of performing multiple tasks, you know, such as look at Photoshop. So you can load a photo, you can alter the photo, you can export the photo, enlarge it. You can actually export it so it's not a photo, but it's a PDF. You could generate a video. You could do all kinds of stuff within Photoshop. But then think of a program like the calculator. It just has one function: to calculate numbers. That's it. You're not going to be able to export out photos from a calculator, or a video, or music, or, you know, anything like that. It has one function. So if we are like software, we're limited by our programming and what the software, the simulation, will allow us to do. But man, just think about what we could do if we could figure out how to hack the Matrix and do it in a good way. I mean, I'm not talking about doing it so, you know, people can go out and rob banks, or, you know, shoot lasers out of their eyes at the first person they get pissed off at, you know. But that type of crap would happen. We would have to learn some sort of self-control, and maybe that's why these limitations have been put in place, so that we are unable to do that. Who knows? Okay. Kind of went off on a tangent there. Apologize. But looking at these numbers that were generated, so the 2442 and the 9779, again, both palindromes. But because the way my mind is starting to work, I began to question what would happen when you add those two numbers together. So we're going to take 2442 plus 9779, and we get this number, 12221, which is also a palindrome. It's the same forwards and backwards. It's crazy. But look at it from the standpoint of the code that I was originally talking about, where you take the last four digits and add the remaining. So if you take this 1 and add it to the end, you're going to get 2222. Okay. So I went and looked up what that number would give through Gematria. What phrase would I get from that number? And what I get is the Holy Spirit is the final call before the apocalypse. Again, here we're talking about the apocalypse, the end. But there's something else about this number 2222. Going back to the numbers that were originally generated by taking 333 times 1111, getting 369963, adding 1111 back to it, and getting the first number 371074. And then I added 369963 to it and every new number that was generated. If you look at the numbers, we have a number here starting with 111. Going down, we have a number starting with 222, and then 333, and 444, 555, and so on. So again, I don't know what prompts me to do this, other than, again, being spiritually guided. I just want to show you something here. So starting with the first number, 111100. Okay, I'm going to put in the whole number, not just the first three digits, but the whole number. We're going to add that to the next number, which is 2220889. And we get this number, 3331889. Okay, look at the last four numbers, 1889, and we have 333 remaining. So 1889 plus 333 gives us 2222. Okay. Now let's start with 2220889. That was the second number. And we're going to add it to the third one. So we're going to add it to 3330778. And we get this number, 5551667. So the last four, 1667. And then we're going to add 555 to it. So 1667 plus 555 again gives us 2222. What are the chances of that? Again. And what are the chances that we would get that number from these numbers? The two palindromes from the split that I was talking about just a moment ago. And the phrase, the Holy Spirit is the final call before the apocalypse. It's crazy, folks. I'm telling you. All right. So let's go on to Bob. Okay. So we got, is it true Bob is real? And then Bob is real. So I began to question this whole Bob thing. And especially since I replied to the email, I should state I have not received a reply back. I don't know if I ever will. Be interesting to see if I do. But so far, I haven't. And maybe since I waited 4 months to send my reply, maybe it's going to wait 4 months to send its. Who knows? But after doing some research on Bob and how that name could be related to computers, I came across this. Let me introduce you to Alice and Bob. Okay? So Alice and Bob are fictional characters commonly used as placeholders. Now, that's a key word here, folks. So commonly used as placeholders in discussions about cryptographic systems and protocols, and in other science and engineering literature where there are several participants in a thought experiment. The Alice and Bob characters were invented by Ron Rivest, I hope I'm pronouncing these names correctly, Adi Shamir, and Leonard Adelman in their 1978 paper, A Method for Obtaining Digital Signatures in Public Key Crypto Systems. We're talking about cryptography here, folks. Subsequently, they have become common archetypes in many scientific and engineering fields such as quantum cryptography, game theory and physics, As the use of Alice and Bob became more widespread, additional characters were added, sometimes each with a particular meaning. Now, this last sentence is in bold. I want you to really pay attention to what it says. These characters do not have to refer to people. They refer to generic agents, which might be different computers or even different programs running on a single computer. Okay? Think about it, folks. If this is a simulation, is it possible that Bob is a rogue program running within the simulation in order to get this information out? And it's simply using Bob as a placeholder so that it ultimately doesn't end up getting caught. Interesting theory, I know. Now let's look at cryptography. So cryptography comes from these ancient Greek words, which I can't pronounce, but they mean hidden secret and to write and study. Cryptography is the practice and study of techniques for secure communication in the presence of adversarial behavior. More generally, cryptography is about constructing and analyzing protocols that prevent third parties or the public from reading private messages. Okay? Now, I want you to pay close attention to that phrase, secure communication in the presence of adversarial behavior. Well, what does it mean by the adversary? In cryptography, an adversary is a malicious entity whose aim is to prevent the users of the crypto system from achieving their goal. Primarily, privacy, integrity, and availability of data. An adversary's efforts might take the form of attempting to discover secret data, corrupting some of the data in the system, and spoofing the identity of a message sender or receiver, or forcing system downtime. Now, it seems like this message was able to come across. So if this was a rogue program, it did its job and it was able to avoid the adversary of getting caught. Who knows? At this point, maybe it has gotten caught, and that's why I haven't received a response. Don't know. But I don't think Bob is a person now. I truly don't. Looking at it from this standpoint, and again, if this is a simulation, I think Bob is a rogue program running within the simulation in an effort to help me achieve this ultimate goal, whatever the end game of this is, and could possibly be help supplying the information to me. I know that sounds weird. I know it sounds totally fucked up in science fiction. But folks, things are going to get much, much crazier. All right, let's go back. One of the other things I wanted to point out to you guys was the Sigil of Saturn. Now, I didn't know what that was, so I went to the internet, typed it in, and interestingly enough, it gives this. So the Sigil of Saturn produces a unique symmetric pattern. The sigil is shown here, both overlaid upon the Freemason's magic square and by itself. So you can see the magic square and how they go from the number 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 4, 4 to 5 and 6, and so on. And it produces this symbol, the sigil. Now, pay close attention to these numbers. So looking at this as a column, so we have the first column, the second column, and the third column. Within each of these columns, we have 3 core sets of numbers. The first column, we have 4, 3, 8. The second column, 9, 5, 1. And the last column, 2, 7, 6. So the first column, 4, 3, 8, I want you to refer back to the Vedic square and the number that was generated and that I've highlighted here in red, which produced the red cross symbol, which is also a reference to the sun. So the first three numbers in this number is 4, 8, 3. The exact same numbers, just in a different sequence. So we have 4, 8, 3 and 4, 3, 8. Same numbers, just, again, out of sequence. Look at the last three, 9, 5, 1. Well, look at the last three numbers in that number from the Vedic square. 1, 5, 9, or if you read it backwards, 9, 5, 1, just like in the Sigil of Saturn. And then the last row, 2, 7, 6. Those are the remaining numbers. 7, 2, 6. Again, out of order, but the same numbers. So, again, this got my mind going, like, this is interesting. Kind of a puzzle. Let's figure this puzzle out. So what I did was I created a square, just like is shown here, but I put the numbers in the same order as they were presented in the Vedic square. So going down, we have 4, 8, 3, just like here, 4, 8, 3, and then 7, 2, 6, 7, 2, 6, and then 1, 5, 9, 1, 5, 9. And then using the same technique that the Freemasons do in this magic square, starting with the number 1 and going to 2 and then 3 and then up to 4 and then over to 5 and so on, it produces this symbol, which I've rotated here. And I just want to show you. So sort of like the infinity symbol, if we had started with 1 and then gone to 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and 7 and 8 and 9, and then started back with 1 and completed the line, we would wind up with this symbol. Now look at this. This is so, like, the geometry of this, it's so precise. And it's the same whether you flip it upside down or right side up. It's the same no matter how you look at it. Now, what's interesting, I feel like I've seen this symbol before, I just don't know where. So I'm left wondering, what does the symbol mean? Now, there was another number generated that I showed you in the last video that also appears in the Vedic square. And that number was generated by taking 1111 and multiplying it by 1111 and getting 1, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then applying the code of using the last 4 digits and adding the remaining, which you wind up with the number 4444. And then I took 1111 times 2222 and got 2468642. And again, applied the code of the last 4, adding the remaining, you wind up with 8888 and so on. But then once you add each of these together, so 4 fours is 16, which 1 and 6 becomes 7, and so on. So 4 eights is 32, so 3 and 2 is 5, and so on. That ended up generating 753186429. So again, I put that into like a magic square with the numbers running exactly the way that they are presented. And that produced this symbol. So looking at it here, and then of course I closed the line. Now look at this. It's exactly the same. Again, whether you flip it, had the wrong one selected, whether you flip it upside down or right side up. Okay, it's the same. And the geometric shape of this is so interesting. And again, I feel like I've seen this symbol from somewhere else. And I just don't recall where, but it looks very familiar to me. And maybe it'll look familiar to some of you out there. Who knows? But it's so interestingly precise. It's so odd. Now, this is something that I'm going to have to explore even more and see if I find even more symbols and try to figure out what in the hell they mean. Because again, like I said, this looks super freaking familiar to me, but I just don't recall where I saw it. Okay. We're going to wrap up here in just a few. But before I get to the main big thing, I want to talk about the number 37. And I want to talk about the number 369963 as well. As I mentioned in the last video, the number 369963 works like an input-output processor. So whatever 4-digit number that you add to 369963 can be brought back to the original number you started with. So just for a quick refresher, we're looking at 369963. So let's just add 1, 2, 3, and 4. So we get 371197. Again, we talked about how all of these numbers start with the number 37. So taking 1197, which is the last 4, and adding the remaining 37 takes us right back to 1, 2, 3, 4. So again, it works like an input-output processor. Now, the number 37 does the same thing, but there's a catch. The 4-digit numbers have to be exactly the same number. So 1111, 2222, 3333, 4444, and so on. It has to be the exact same number. The 4 digits have to be exactly the same. And there's also something else interesting here. Let me show you. So we're going to start with the number 37. The other interesting part of this is you have to use multiplication now. So if you took 37 times 1111, you wind up with 41107. The last 4 is 1107, so 1107, and the remaining number was 4, so we're going to add it, and we're back to 1111. Now, I want to show you something, folks. 1111. When you add that together, what do you get? You get the number 4. That was the number that was presented to us at the very beginning. It's giving you the answer. So again, 37 times 1111, 4 is what 1111 added together. You get 4. So there's your answer. But that's what you're going to add to the end. So 1107 plus 4 takes you back to 1111. Now let's go to the next number, 2222. Well, 2 times 4 is 8. So we're going to do 2222 times 37. As you can see, 8 is the very first number. So we have 82214. Simply add 8 to the end. So 2214 plus 8 gives you 2222. Let's look at, let's just jump up to 4444. So 4 fours is 16. So take that times 37. You get a number that starts with 16, and the remaining is 4428. So 4428 plus 16 gives you 4444. So again, the number 37 also works like an input-output processor. But there's that catch. They have to be all the same digits. So that's kind of interesting. But All of this started with 369963, generated from 1111 times 333. I want to show you something. That number can be also achieved by taking 9999 times 37. Lo and behold, 369963. And also, if you apply the code, the last four digits, 9963 plus 63. Nope, I did it wrong. 36. Hang on, I'm screwing myself up. 999 times 37. Okay, so 36 and then 9963. Okay, so 9963 plus 36 is back to 9999. Okay, screwed that up, but you can see that that's how it comes back. So again, the number 37 works like a input-output processor. Just thought that was kind of cool. All right, folks, we're going to wrap this up with this information that I have just literally just within this week. Well, all of this has actually been within this week, but some of this has come out throughout the week, but literally this morning, no joke, before I started recording this video, this new information came to light. Okay. In 1982, there was a solstice solar eclipse. A solstice solar eclipse is a solar eclipse that only happens on the solstice, okay? And this particular one happened on June 21st of 1982. There was not a solstice solar eclipse before 1982 except in 1870, okay? That's how far back you have to go before you see the next solstice solar eclipse take place, going backwards in time, okay? So 1870, and then boom, we jump all the way to 1982 before we have the next one. Now, here's what's interesting. That's a huge span of time. However, 19 years later from 1982, in 2001, also on June 21st, we had another one, another solstice solar eclipse that took place on the solstice. 19 years from that, in 2020, June 21st, we had another one. In 2039, we'll have another one. And in 2058, we will also have another one. Now, after 2058, we won't see another solstice solar eclipse, okay? Now, keep in mind, I'm saying solstice solar eclipse. This is a solar eclipse that takes place on this particular day, on the solstice. We'll have other solar eclipses, just not one that takes place on that particular day. For almost 200 years, okay? Why from 1982 to 2058 are we having them in 19-year cycles? I'm going to show you the math, folks, and this is crazy. So from 1982 to 2001 gives us the first 19-year span. From 2001 to 2020, we have the next one. From 2020 to 2039 will be the third one. And from 2039 to 2058 will be the fourth one. This is going to trip your guys' minds. Let's reduce these numbers. So 9 and 1 becomes 10 on all of these. Reducing 10, you get 1. We have 4 cycles, 4 ones. We're back to 11, 11. Okay. Something else I want to point out. We have 5 dates here. 1982, 2001, 2020, 2039, 2058. 5 exact dates. Let's go back to the keynote. Remember those symbols that I said were coming to me that I was seeing being generated through these numbers? We had the one that was generated from the pyramid of the sun. We had the one that was generated from the Aztec sunstone. We had the one that was generated from the actual code itself that looked like a setting sun. We had the one that was generated from the last numbers and all those digits that went 369, 258, 147, seemed to represent 3 arrows pointing up to the sun. And then we had the symbol created from the Vedic square, which is also an ancient symbol of the sun. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 symbols for the sun. And 5 exact dates of a solstice solar eclipse. Folks, again, what are the chances? It's going to get crazier. When you take all of the numbers in the first date, 6/21/1982, you add all those numbers together, you get the number 29. 2 and 9 is 11, which then becomes the number 2 because 1 plus 1 is 2. You're going to see a crazy sequence here, folks. Then the next date, 6/21/2001. You add all those numbers together, you get the number 12, which becomes 3, because 1 and 2 is 3. The next date, you add all those numbers together, you get 13. 1 and 3 becomes 4. The next date, you add all those together, you get 23, and 2 and 3 becomes 5. And then the last date, you add all those numbers together, you get 24, which becomes 2 plus 4 is 6. You have this sequence of 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now that's from taking all of the numbers in the dates and adding them together. But look what happens when you take just the numbers in the year. So 1982, you add all that together, you get 20, which reduces to 2. 2001, you get 3 because you only have 2 and 1, so you get 3. 2020, you have 2 and 2, which becomes 4. 2039, you get 14, which 4 and 1 is 5. And then from 2058, you get 15, which 1 and 5 is 6. So again, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It is following a pattern, a cycle. All of these numbers have been showing a cycle, a pattern. Now check this out. This is this is where it gets more and more bizarre. So taking 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, that number, and putting it through Gematria gave me one and only one phrase. And it's not even technically a phrase the way that it is written out. It is, but not when you first look at it. It's hidden. The phrase was nothing but a string of numbers spelled out. And that string of numbers was 13, 21, 12, 29, 16, 12, 5, 9, 14, 6, 9, 14, 9, 25, 23, 1, 22, 5, 19, 15, 6, 12, 15, 22, and 5. I was like, what the fuck is that? Well, I wrote the numbers out like numbers like the way we see them. So 13, not spelled out, but the number 1 and 3, it put it out in that sequence. And I don't know what possessed me to do this. I honestly don't. But then I pulled up our alphabet and looked at, so like A being 1, B being 2, C being 3, and so on. When you apply each letter in the alphabet to its corresponding number, it gave this phrase: multiple infinite waves of love. Folks, how is that even possible? Like, what are the chances? This is by design. You cannot tell me that this is coincidence. This is by design. Multiple infinite waves of love. Well, what does that mean exactly? And what does it mean that we're having a 19-year cycle of these solstice solar eclipses taking place? And yet, before 1982, we didn't see one except in 1870, and then, whatever years before that. But it literally went from 1870 to 1982. And then we're going to have them in 19-year cycles to 2058. And then we're not going to have another solstice solar eclipse for nearly 200 years after it. Folks, I really think June 21st, 2058 is the date of this reboot. It seems to all be laid out here. Now, the simple phrase, multiple infinite waves of love. Well, what does that mean? Maybe it's telling us that the way of changing all of this is by changing the way we treat each other. And the way that we need to learn to respect one another, love one another, treat one another the way that we're supposed to, and let go of our selfish ways and only thinking about ourselves. And realize that we're not alone in this. That we have to come together. We have to unite together. And could you imagine if the whole entire planet united together in love? What kind of wave that would send out across the universe? Just think, it could heal us. It could heal our planet. It could heal the universe. It's crazy to think about, but waves of love, across the universe. It's so insane. But does it have another meaning? Is it the simulation's way of saying, look, folks, you're going to hell in a handbasket. Look at the planet the way it is now. Look at the way that we are treating each other. Other countries. We're just so divided. And maybe, could it be the simulation's way of saying, I no longer have faith in you people. You're just going downhill. You're not doing anything to help yourselves. And I have to be the one to step in and use multiple infinite waves of love to create the reset. Get things back to a beginning instead of this end. And again, the beginning is the end and the end is the beginning. Think about it. It's a crazy message. But again, what are the chances? It just seems impossible for this to be an accident. For these dates have this 19-year cycle that brings us back to 1111, the number that I've been seeing ever since 2014, after this massive bright white light was just shown in my face while I was trying to sleep. And then for each date to produce numbers in a sequence, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then for those numbers to generate a phrase that technically isn't a phrase, but it is, but it's hidden within more numbers. And then for those numbers to produce this exact phrase, multiple infinite waves of love. It cannot be coincidence. It is by design. It is simply by design. And again, is there more that's going to be revealed? I think so. I think so. And as more stuff comes to me, like I said, this information just seems to be coming weekly, if not daily. And again, I have been working on this just since I uploaded the last video, and this simply figuring out this last phrase here, multiple infinite waves of love, like I said, was just figured out this morning, literally. And I don't even know what prompted me to compare those numbers to our alphabet. Unless I was, again, spiritually guided to do so. But to get that exact phrase. It just boggles the mind. And again, it cannot be coincidence. I think we have to start making some serious changes. And maybe that's why this information's coming now. We have a 37-year head start. And can we make changes in 37 years before 2058 rolls around? Maybe that's what we're given. We're given this last opportunity to make some serious changes on this planet. And again, we have to come together as a united group of people and realize that just because our skin's different, our sexuality's different, whatever, we're still people. We're all just simply people. We all bleed if we're cut. We all feel pain, sadness, love, joy, all of it. We are all exactly the same, regardless of how we look, how we dress, how we act. None of it matters. We have to learn to start loving one another and being respectful of one another and being respectful of this planet that we're living on. So again, is this telling us that we have a 37-year head start? 37 years to start getting our shit together and get us out of this mess that we're in and back on the right track? Or is the simulation going to step in and do it for us? Are we being given a choice? All right, I'm going to leave you with that thought because that's pretty deep. So, as I said, as more information comes to me, I will be putting it out there for you folks. And, like I said, I hope we can all come together, try and make sense of this. It seems like it's starting to make sense in a strange way. But again, I will definitely be putting out more stuff as it comes to me and handing that over to the world. So I appreciate you watching this, and I would love to hear your feedback, your comments. I know that these videos are long, but this information, you can't just do small bits of information at a time because it all just directly leads right into the next. And so I want to clump it together. I want to show you all how one thing leads directly to the next in the line. And the only way to do that is just to make one big long video instead of these like little small videos, and then, you know, trying for you guys to make sense of it and watch them in the right order. So I don't know. But anyway, I'm going to stop rambling, and I hope you all take care. And again, I would love to hear your thoughts and let me know what you think. So until next time, take care. Bye-bye.